Welcome to Book Bingers, the podcast where two best friends talk about books mostly.
Yep.
But also book boyfriends.
Oh, yeah.
Book theories.
Yeah. Fantasy worlds.
Characters we love, characters we don't love.
Yeah.
And today...
Book talk.
Book talk.
But today...
We're talking about sci-fi.
Sci-fi!
Yeah.
Which is new for us, I would say. We don't really talk about it on the podcast, but we've both been dabbling
Yeah, and I feel
little
like,
more.
truthfully, much of what we loved reading growing up could be considered sci-fi.
Correct. And one could still consider sci-fi almost fantasy because
Absolutely.
we're talking different worlds.
They're like neighbors.
Yeah.
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 Little neighbors.
Little neighbors.
There's still an escape. It's just usually more in a dystopian world.
Correct. And when I was growing up, dystopian was where it was at.
Absolutely.
That was like the basis of everything I looked for. Like after Hunger Games, I was like, more dystopian, and I just went down a rabbit hole.
As one does.
As one does. And then they kind of fell off because they flew too close to the sun.
They sure did. They had their moment.
Yeah.
But I kind of hope to see a resurgence of it.
Me too.
You know?
I think we're all feeling a lot of nostalgia, and you can tell by everyone and their mom talking about Twilight, including us, that we're wanting that back.
Played victim to
We
that.
sure have. We're wanting it back. We're wanting a little bit more of our youth, and I'm hoping that people are delivering.
Constantly just chasing that feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That feeling. And let's talk about some of the ones that we did grow up on that maybe inspired us, but then also some ones that we're loving now that are more updated, a little more adult, not so YA driven.
Yeah. I mean, you can't talk about sci-fi without talking about, I think, the top two, which would be Hunger Games and Divergent.
Correct. I mean,
I feel like everyone reads those.
There was a reason that movies were made by them, but kind of everything at this point was like turned into a movie. But Hunger Games was the big one that came up after Twilight, right?
Yeah.
Twilight broke the mold and was like, hey, young adults like to read. And then Hunger Games was like, hi, here I am.
Get ready.
And get ready. And it was a much more adult version of YA. Mm-hmm. But also very dystopian.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, ooh.
I think
what's
about
this world?
I think about how much death and just straight up killing there is in those books,
like,
and I'm
child on child killing.
Yeah, and
you know?
I think, at what age is it okay for my child to read this?
Like as a mom now, I'm like, hey, because my daughter's weird. She's really into weird, creepy things. I'm like, is the movies too dark?
Right? Because the movies still slap. The movies still hold up. Big time.
And it was on, if you saw our other podcast or listened where we were talking about movies that are as good as books, this was a big one for us.
Absolutely.
But Hunger Games changed the game, if you will.
Absolutely did.
Which quickly led to Divergent. And
this one's even darker.
Obsessed. And much more sci-fi, if we're going to be like sci-fi-ish.
Yeah.
This one was dark. In a way I didn't think
Theo
was...
James.
That was my introduction to him.
Absolutely.
And, pretty much made Shailene Woodley like a household name.
Yeah.
And there were some great, great people in it, like Kate Winslet. What's his face from Top Gun Maverick? What's his name? I'm blanking.
Yeah.
Miles Teller. Miles Teller was her brother.
That was his first. That's definitely the first time I saw him in something.
It was such a great cast. But if we're talking about the books, I was so into this book, and it's literally on my list of books that have disappointed me the most in life. That being said, you should read it if you haven't. But the last book, and I'm just going to spoil the shit out of this, so I'm so sorry. It's been out for 1,000 years. Yeah. That's on you. It was the first time I think I had been so invested in a series where the main character died.
What?
At the end of the
Why?
series. In such a stupid way. In such a way that could have been prevented. I think that's what was the most horrible.
Like, were you just trying to be different?
That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like to be different for different sake. And now I'm looking at you, Rebecca Yarros, and I say, if you do this to me, I will never, ever forgive you.
Because, wrapping it up with a bow would have been fine.
It would have been
And you know what? Maybe I would have reread the books.
I mean,
But why would I ever start reading those books again, knowing where they end?
and it was hard for me to then go into the movie because I was like, knowing that this is what's going to happen, and it sucks. It was like every time I saw Titanic, I was like, maybe this time the ship won't sink.
Maybe this time they can both fit on the
maybe
door.
they'll try twice,
you know what I mean?
this time.
Like, no.
No, it's really, really frustrating to love a book so much. And I loved that series so much that it made me, after that book, leave. It made me leave dystopian and YA.
Yeah, that's tough.
It was a tough blow.
Yeah.
It was a tough
really
blow.
Springboarded you into... What'd you
Romance.
go to next? Romance?
I went to romance because I had been in a thriller era. Then Twilight changed my life. Went deep into dystopian. Read pretty much everything on our list that we're going to go through. And then Divergent ruined me forever. And I went hardcore romance and back into some thriller for a while.
Yeah.
Until I entered fantasy, which was way later.
I know. Fantasy really...
I was in my adult life when I entered fantasy.
Yeah.
So, let's keep going. The Maze Runner.
I never read this.
Oh!
I never read this.
My God. The Maze Runner is so
I know, and it was movies too,
good.
right?
Yeah, I never finished the movies because they took this really long break because I think the main character, like the guy, got hurt.
Oh,
and they had to so they fell off.
Fair.
But the first one was good. Another great cast. Dylan O'Brien.
Yeah.
Is the lead.
Yeah.
Great. This is like a really it's like a really weird story where he's just like kind of plopped into this like maze, and it's all
he has
guys.
to be a runner,
and he has to be a runner, and it's like all guys, and it's like this thing that this like happens until one day a girl comes down.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't want to give away anything, but it's good.
Wow.
And this was one that Corey made me read. Yeah, he had read it first, and he was like, "Ooh, I
think that you would.
I really think you'd like this one." And I was like, "It's all boys. I don't know." And he's like,
"Until there's a girl,
there's one important girl." And I was like, "Okay, sold." Oh my God, you threw in the Giver.
I feel like that was one of the OGs.
This was a book I had to read in school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was not mad about it.
No.
This is one of those ones, kind of like Scythe, where you start in a utopia.
Yes.
And I feel like that always pulls me in because I think about, we think of the state of the world.
Correct.
And we're like, oh, a utopia. Could you imagine?
Could you imagine? Heaven on earth.
But one of the things is they basically don't have any feelings anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's the main character ends up with, is he called the Giver, I think?
Yeah.
And there's this one person who like, he holds all of the emotions and all of the feelings and everything.
20.
Oh, yeah. Oh, more than that, probably.
5 years since I've read this?
Uh-huh.
Whoa! This is taking me
And it's like
back.
he like sees colors for the first time, and then they're like escaping,
I distinctly
like him and this little boy.
remember the cover being like black and white.
Yes. In the ending, don't ask me why I always remember the ending. It's the boy with the other little boy, and they're sledding down a hill to a house, and there's Christmas and snow.
Yep.
And he has this good feeling about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
why was that a school book that we all read? I don't
know, man. It's probably banned by this
Probably.
point. But
okay, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Those were hilarious.
Hilarious. I had never, and I don't know if I have read anything like that since, but this definitely was like a, what am I reading? Kind of
Correct.
moment.
It's so wacky.
It's so wacky.
It's funny. But it's in outer space, and
I feel. Did they make movies of every single thing we're talking about?
Pretty much.
1984 Fahrenheit. Yes, they've made a movie of every single one, or a show of every single one of these. Yeah. So, well done, books.
I'm telling you, sci-fi makes for good television.
It really does. Like, I'm sure that there's shows or movies that I've seen that were books that I didn't realize it. Like, you could definitely tell me that, like, Stargate, that was a book.
Yeah, you just found out, right?
Yes.
That's what I mean. It's like...
Which I'm like, do I go back and read the book now? I don't know. But, like, you could tell me that, like, Stargate was a book, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, because it was a great movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just, I think...
It really lends itself to
really epic settings and just CGI.
I agree. Like, okay, let's just do our list of what was from our youth and let's get into the now. Because if you're watching this, reading this, hearing this, whatever you're doing, you probably want recommendations for right now.
I mean, you could still read Fahrenheit 451, 1984, Handmaid's Tale. You could.
Absolutely.
Or you can watch the show.
Or you can take our recommendations for some newer ones that we've been reading that I think really take the cake in this category. Let's start with, if you've listened before, you will have heard us talk about Scythe.
Yes. Listen, and this is going to be made into a show.
So get ahead of it now.
Because I think it'll only increase your excitement for the show coming out.
Yep.
It is amazing. It's another utopia. It's a utopian society, and there are these people called scythes who are selected and trained as part of the population, and they need to cull the population.
Correct, because in this utopia, no one dies.
Except for whoever the scythe chooses. And it is like a very esteemed honor, and when I tell you, this is one of those books that within the first couple of chapters, you don't want to put it down.
And that's really what you're looking for from a book, to suck you in immediately. Here's my problem. Both my best friend and my husband have told me everything there is to know about these books that I feel like I read them.
Yeah, it would just be a refresher course for you
It would really just be to get my own visuals.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I know...
Truly get the character names
literally
down.
Everything that happens. Because my husband wouldn't shut the fuck up about this book.
But I mean, that's what I mean. You can't get it out of your brain.
Congratulations, Scythe. You have truly made my husband a book nerd, and I thank you. I thank you for your service.
And it's a series. There's 3 books, and then there's a 4th one that has short stories in it.
Let me know that the covers slap as well.
Absolutely,
the books look so cool.
Absolutely.
They look cool, and they look like they're going to remain cool forever. I don't feel like it's going to go out of style.
No, I don't think so.
It's a cool looking cover.
It gives Handmaids a little bit, because it has like the red cloak and everything, but it is not like Handmaids.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into 3 that are similar in
They're all by the
style.
same author.
Yeah. They're Artemis, The Martian, Project Hail Mary. Now, let me just say, I'm going to say out of 3 of them, Project Hail Mary is where you should go, because it is going to be a movie coming out, and...
You can already go watch The Martian if you want.
Yes, and it was great. I mean, Matt Damon did a wonderful job. But Project Hail Mary for me was the winner. And does it have anything to do with Ryan Gosling being in it? No, because I read this before that. It has nothing to do with that. Is he perfectly cast? Yes.
Yes. So these are all by Andy Weir. And I'll tell you,
he has a style, and it's good.
It's great. It's very engaging. And I'll tell you, I downloaded the audiobook for Project Hail Mary. And I listen to it when I'm driving around.
How is it?
It is phenomenal.
Really?
It is phenomenal.
Wow.
The guy who does the voice literally has an accent for everyone. He's so funny because the dialogue is very like Ryland Grace he's the doctor who is like the main character of the story, and he's very self-deprecating and he's funny and he's dry. Like the sense of humor is really good.
So I have a hard time with audio. I do, but when it's someone that's so talented at different voices,
like because
they
meet up at some point. There's this like global crisis that's happening, and so there's people from all these different countries. He does accents for every single one of them. And they're spot on. And then we do meet a character, I'll just say Rocky.
Okay.
And the way that they do Rocky's voice,
that makes me want to listen to it.
It's so good. I was sending clips to my sister because she was the one who initially told me to read this like years ago.
Maybe we should do a segment on best audio.
Yeah, because I only really have a handful, so that would be enough for one episode.
Do you know what's funny random tangent is I wanted to be, for a hot minute, an audio narrator. But yet, I mostly can't stand audiobooks.
But I think you have a great voice
for
audio.
Thanks. Until you have to hear me do like an Irish accent or something, and you're like, no, why does she sound like that? Okay, speaking of like cool futuristic worlds,
Yeah.
artificial wisdom
Yeah.
is very weirdly familiar and could be something that I can visualize actually happening.
It feels not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay, wait. Who writes artificial wisdom? Who writes
Thomas Weaver.
Yes. And this is one of those books that I didn't know anything about it going into it besides Sarah telling me I had to read it. And everyone on Book Talk talking about it. In that, like, it's so good. And I was like, okay. I didn't realize until, I want to say 40% into the book, when a murder happened out of nowhere, that I was like,
it's a murder mystery.
Is this a murder mystery? What's happening? And I'm not kidding. It's 40% into the book because I had to look and be like, but the book just changed.
Isn't it like it's like a Russian nesting doll where like you just keep getting
correct? Like, okay, just to like give you a glimpse into the world. So we're in the future. I believe it's like 2050 or something like that, and global warming has taken over.
Yeah,
the lands are heating up, and there is a town that literally ends up millions of people dying because they got so hot that it literally
over the middle. There's a section of the Middle East that like 100 million people or something.
They literally died, like cooked from the inside out. Yeah. And our main guy, like journalist that we're with on this journey, his wife is presumed to be one of the people that died there. His wife and unborn child.
Yeah.
And so it's been 10 years since that happened, and he's like on a mission to basically figure out what happened. At the same time, the world is deciding they need to come together and that they need to elect a dictator that's going to take over the world. And we find out that
to handle this climate change,
handle this crisis, we find out that it's going to be narrowed down from like 20 candidates, and all of a sudden overnight, it's like, just kidding, there's only 2 people in the running. One is the American president, and one
is AI.
His
the
name's
first
Solomon.
AI politician.
Yes. And I don't want to tell you like who's murdered or like any of that stuff because that's like the juicy stuff. But I literally thought like, oh, this is really cool. I'm reading a political sci-fi book.
Yeah. It's like a political murder mystery thriller.
But then a murder came. Yeah. And I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
It's one of those books that you don't know where it's going. You think it's one thing, and that's another, and it's another, and it's another. And it's good.
And then by the end, I still was like,
what? So I would move this one high up on your list. Especially if you're looking for one. Like, you don't want to invest into a series. Like a standalone one and done book.
I feel like he could go on to a book too, and I think he might be.
I hope he does.
I think he might be writing
this one I can so visually see.
The tech in it, it just feels like...
Man, it feels like we're already on our way there. So much of it is like in VR rooms.
Yeah.
Which my son is already living in a virtual reality.
And you get to like design your own space and like...
Yes. And it just feels like that is honestly where our future is going. Where it's like WALL-E. I feel like we're turning into WALL-E. Like where we're not going to really... A lot of it's just going to be meetings in VR.
And then there's
rooms.
these islands that they've made...
They
move around the oceans and avoid weather, and they're kind of almost like a utopian bubble around them.
Correct.
And so like
volunteers tribute.
It feels like very like an elitist part of society lives in those.
And this is where our AI Solomon, he's the president, I'm going to say.
Like governor
of these
islands.
Rotating islands.
Yeah.
It's highly recommend.
It's easy to get into. Like there's a lot going on, but I feel like you can visualize it.
It's very easily understandable. Yeah. Because so much of it is already based off of technology that we already are familiar with.
It just seems like Apple's going to come out with this in
30 years in the future. You know what I mean? Like it really does seem like it's not like flying car. You know, like it's not the Jetsons. Which
though, why haven't we had?
Did you just see this TikTok?
Yes.
Why haven't we had
a Jetsons movie?
Jetsons like live action?
Yeah. We've had every other
his boy Elroy. Like I want to see daughter Judy,
Jane, his wife.
You know what I mean? Like I want Rosie to cook me meals and
I used to love the Jetsons.
Same.
Maybe that's where it started.
That absolutely. I will never forget when the Jetsons and the Flintstones did a
crossover.
Lost my mind. Anyways, Skyward series. I haven't read this.
No, so this is Brandon Sanderson.
Correct.
Yeah, and this is YA. So I would say if you are looking for a good like entry-level sci-fi, this is...
And Brandon Sanderson is the king of fantasy.
He's the king of fantasy, so I feel like it's...
So he's been dubbed. I didn't dub him that. I haven't read anything by him.
The world building is very easy. Like, it's basically, we're way in the future, and Earth is gone, and these people who used to... their origins are in Earth. They, eventually had to take to space to escape, and they are on this planet called Detritus, and it's very funny.
Really?
Yeah, it's
he gives me funny vibes like him himself.
Yeah, and it has like really good
cool
side
dude.
Characters.
I am a sucker for good side characters.
Yeah, and like one of them is the AI is called M-Bot, and he's like...
Is he like a pet?
He feels that way.
Yeah.
And he's constantly evolving and trying to figure out his feelings. And then there's a little snail, and the snail is so cute. What's the snail's name? No, it's not.
Snailsies?
No, it's not. But he's really cute too. Like, it's just like they're like cute little... Yeah, and so I will eventually finish it. The fourth book
I have had kind of harassment on that I need to read Mistborn. So I have vowed that I am starting Mistborn.
Is that fantasy or is it sci-fi?
It is fantasy. From what I understand, it is like a 7-book epic fantasy. It's giving... The way that people are telling me, it's going to make Throne of Glass seem like so
life.
Cute. So... Corey and I are going to read it together, and I'm nervous. I'm nervous that I'm not going to like it, and everyone's going to be like, you idiot. Who doesn't like Brandon Sanderson?
The thing is, I think you'll like it.
I think I'll like it.
You'll like it. I don't know that it will be something that you're like, I need to voraciously read all 7 books at once.
Correct, because if I'm basing it off of Throne of Glass, I wanted to quit so many times.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? I wanted to quit. So I'm really nervous, but I'm going to do it. And Corey and I doing it together will be fun and a nice little buddy read. And I'll probably have to take breaks in between each book, but that's fine. I'm going to do it. That was my 2024 goal.
And then I'll see how you guys like it, and then I'll go from there. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Let's move on to, did you finish this series?
I finished book 1.
Okay, I finished book 1 a long time ago, so let's get into what is the book talk darling of the year, Red Rising.
And this has been out forever.
Correct, and that's why I'm like, I barely remember it. I'd have to reread it.
So the last book just came out, I think, this past year.
And I think that's why it's so big.
So I think like a lot of people just started from the beginning of the series. I did this on audio.
Oh, yeah.
How was it? I finished it on my Kindle.
Audio queen over here.
I know. Listen, two books, and it's August. You know what I mean?
You like your sci-fi audios. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
There's something about, I don't know that I can listen to like romance and spicy scenes. Do you know what I mean?
It's weird. I've done it.
Yeah.
I remember everybody telling me I had to do Haunting Adeline on the audio, and I was like... I can't.
Were you just giggling like this is so awkward?
Yes, because there's something about a guy trying to sound dark and
it's too much for me. So I feel like sci-fi is like a safe place for me to
and
listen
like
to.
when they use pet names. It's like one thing when you're reading it, but when they're like little mouse, I can't.
No.
Can't do it. And then I'm usually trying to listen to it faster. So
Even worse. Yeah. No.
I don't need Elvin and the Chipmunks to read to me. I am good.
No.
Anyways, Red Rising.
So this is I would say it was a solid book. Like,
I remember liking it.
It takes place on like Mars.
Yeah.
And there's this class society where the Reds are, they live underneath the surface, and they are basically the slaves of society. They do all the manual labor, and they don't even know. They think that they are preparing the planet for people from Earth to come and live there.
Correct.
And they don't even know that oh, that's already happened hundreds of years ago because they never even leave the surface. They don't leave underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, the golds are the top of society. They're the elite. And you have all these different, like, pinks are basically the whores of society. And, you know.
Fitting.
Yeah. Well, you know, take that as it may. You know, and they have the blues and the red and all this. And so this guy who is a red basically infiltrates the system.
Yeah.
And with the rebellion. There's always a rebellion.
It's almost like it's called Red Rising.
Yeah. Now, can I tell you how the rest of the series ends?
I know.
The whole second half of the book, like, I feel like I really enjoyed the first half because it was a lot, the world building was great, and I feel like I really could visualize everything. And then the second half was really like, he was in this competition. It felt very like Hunger Games-esque, and I was like,
So, you know, Book Talk's good quality is that it reminds me to read books, like when I have forgotten that a second one is coming out. Because back in the day, the example, read this book and continued to read other books, never heard about the new ones coming out, forgot it even existed.
Yeah. And imagine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But now, Book Talk likes to remind me every time a new book is going to come out, months beforehand, and they're talking about every theory that's ever popped into their head. So I'll never forget when books are coming out now, which is great. Because I probably would have maybe kept up. I don't remember. I remember thinking it was fine. I don't know.
I feel like I will keep the second one like on deck for like
it's a lot
time
of books
that I'm there's
in this
I
series.
Want to say like at least 5.
So give it a try. I don't know. It might be for you.
Yeah.
Now the next book I have not read, but much to Sarah's
chagrin.
Yes. I will get to it.
No, I think you'll like it when you get to it eventually.
All I know is I need to know how it ends because Sarah's like, I need to know what you thought of the ending.
Let me tell you. So I made a TikTok about the ending, specifically me being like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And when I tell you, every couple of days I have a new comment on there from someone who has just finished the book like, I don't know, I think it's this. And then the next person, I don't know, I think it's this.
So it's like an indie film ending where you're like, it could be interpreted in many ways.
One of two ways.
Okay.
I think one way makes more sense.
Okay.
But I also wouldn't hate if she maybe came up with a second book that kind of gave us the answer in the next step of the story. Because it does set it up where, like, we could see where the next generation goes.
So what's the world? What's the
So it's a dystopian. This is more of a dystopian.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess it's dystopian. Yeah, it has to. It has to be.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, so there's... In my brain, how I'm visualizing it is, like, I live in Massachusetts. I lived in Massachusetts. Old Sturbridge Village. Like, colonial times.
Okay,
like, it feels like
Yeah.
they live in, like, a village.
Okay.
Right? And it's a very classic, like, the men do everything and the women are nothing.
Okay.
Right? Like, the women stay home and do their work and they keep their mouths shut and that's that.
Perfect.
Because women are very dangerous.
Yeah, we are.
Okay? So, at age 16...
Oh.
girls come into their magic.
Oh.
Their magic.
I didn't know there was magic involved.
There's magic. I mean, so this is what
So you mean they get their period and they become full...
They come into their magic.
Okay.
So what they do is all of these 16-year-old girls get shipped out of the village and into this encampment. It's basically like a Lord of the Flies situation.
Oh.
And so they basically spend a year called their grace year.
Uh-huh.
Where they have to dispel their magic. And so it becomes this, like, dog eat dog. These girls are up against each other, like, wild. And there's these men who are outside the encampment who will, like, kidnap the girls, and they're murdering the girls, and they take their flesh, the flesh of the girls that have been captured, and they sell it back to the village.
So you're telling me magical? You can read this, but you can't watch Yellow Jackets?
Listen, maybe this is why I can't watch Yellow Jackets, because I can't get it out of my brain. I didn't read this at night before bed, okay?
Wow. Wait, I didn't know that that's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, I've described it a time or two. Maybe I haven't hit the right...
Maybe
I haven't hit the right points.
Maybe you haven't hit the right points, because I don't feel like I've known anything about this, except for you going, I need you to read it. It's so good. I need to know what you think about the ending.
It's on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
Listen, you could easily read this on the plane.
So is there a woman who makes it out of her grace year with her power.
So like many women make it out of the grace year, but many die. And so it's kind of, when they come back, they're basically like zombie. They've been through something. You know what I mean? Wow. And so this is the grace year that maybe we're going to see change.
Is it in a first person point of view? Are we following one girl? Or is it?
Yeah, you're following one girl.
Is it giving like Violet? Is she like really like little and shouldn't be strong and powerful?
She's resourceful and she has about had it with these men. And there's a little bit of a romance in it too.
What? Okay, done. Sold.
We have 2 plane rides coming up.
And they're long plane rides, so this might be my plane ride back.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, you just blew my mind with that one. I don't know.
Okay, but
I don't know about you, but she just sold me on that.
What does that say about the fact that I read this so long ago and I still remember that much of it?
Good gravy. You know what I mean? Was this a 2024 read or a 2023?
This is like beginning of the year, I think.
Okay, I swear to God, I've never heard anything about this book besides you telling me it's so good you have to read it because I'm blown away. You just sold me.
Okay.
Sold. Great. Okay. Let's talk about dark matter because it lives in my mind rent free.
Yeah.
I'm so obsessed with this book. What's his name? Blake Crouch. Wrote it. I did not know.
I can't stop thinking Barty Crouch.
I know.
Hard.
I did not know that he also wrote Wayward Pines because I didn't know that Wayward Pines was a book. But I saw the show back in the day when it was on a few years ago. And it blew my mind. It was one of the best shows I had seen. I didn't see the twist coming. Apparently, this man knows how to write a twist. So this one is very sci-fi, but in a world that we still live in. It's the multiverse. Okay. So basically, our main character is him and his wife and his son are talking one day about how his old college roommate is getting this big award in science. This is very general because science, I can't remember. Yes, okay. In science. And we all know that it should have been our main guy. He should have been the one that but his college girlfriend, now wife, got pregnant and he made the decision to have a child with her and become more of a college professor and not keep doing the work he was doing. So he goes to the bar that night to congratulate his friend, but on his way home, he gets kidnapped, taken, drugged, all the things, thrown into a box, and wakes up in a world where everyone's like, hey, he had won this award. He never had the kid. He never married.
Timelines?
He's like, what is happening? Why doesn't anybody remember me? He starts to think like, oh my God, am I going crazy? Like, do I have a tumor? Like, he checks himself into a hospital. He's like, I think there's something happening. Yeah. There's nothing going on. His house is different. The locks are different. Everything's different. So, without giving away anything, there's multiverse stuff happening. He figures out that the thing he had been working at in college, actually, he continued that work in another timeline, and it came to fruition as basically like a time machine. And we see some alternate realities, a lot of multiverse stuff. It's his mission to try and get his way back to his reality and his life. There is a show currently on Apple TV.
I watched the trailer, so like what you've said is basically what you see in the trailer.
Yes, I'm not giving away anything. That is the premise of the book. Yeah. I did not spoil anything. The show is great. The book is better.
Is this one of these like you don't know who you can trust?
Yes, and no. Like, it's very confusing for him, but as the reader, you are on...
Are you reading in his POV the whole time?
Yes, and it is so ridiculously good. When I tell you, I didn't see the twist coming, and there's no, like, it's like twist, it's not like twist after twist where you're like, what the hell's happening? There's one big one. Yeah. And it is so good that I'm blown away. It's kind of, if you've seen Wayward Pines or read Wayward Pines, you'll know he's like the M. Night Shyamalan of books. I swear to God, like, I just didn't know where this story was going. It's so good. It's so good. It was so good. It lives in my mind. It's probably one of the best books I've read this year, and I'm obsessed
That's
with.
high praise.
High praise. And it was so different from anything else I've read in a long time. And it was just refreshing and quick. I think it's like 300 or 400 pages. And
I'm telling you,
when a book is that
bangers.
When a book is that short, which I shouldn't say short, that's average length. Yeah. It doesn't have the time to be slow.
Yeah.
Like,
You know what I mean?
So much that you have to get in. There's so much that you have to get through. And it had me crying. It had me laughing. I was invested. I did not know how it was going to end. It left it with an ending where I'm like, wait, what? No, I want to keep going. Wow. Like, take me on more of this journey. Yeah. I need to know how this continues to go.
Okay. Listen,
highly recommend.
I hope that you listened this far into the podcast because we ended with 2 bangers.
See, we saved the best ones for last. I'm telling you. Watch this in reverse.
To be fair, I would say at least 5 of the things that we've talked about today, I think should be required reading.
I agree.
For everyone.
I agree. Well, okay. Well, which ones?
Scythe.
Yeah.
Project Hail Mary. Artificial Wisdom.
Yeah.
Grace Year.
Yeah.
Dark Matter.
Okay, great. So our recent ones. I thought you were going to be like, required reading. I mean, Hunger Games.
This is, if you liked any of those from our youth, then these should be required reading.
We should totally do it. If you liked this, you'll like this.
Yeah. Yeah, we should.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you have sci-fi recommendations for us, which I'm sure there's a million, because we're just kind of dabbling into this year, throw them at us. And now listen, you know what we like.
I still want a sci-fi that is heavy on the romance, okay? I want a romance set in sci-fi. I have not found one. The book that I had mentioned in the last podcast,
something?
Blighted Barbarian Stars or whatever.
Oh. Barbarian Ice
Planet Barbarian. No, that's just erotica.
Okay.
Blighted Stars or whatever. I posted about yesterday and someone was like, I was really disappointed. I thought this one was going to be romance, but then it was very like light on the romance. I was like,
so like your dream scenario is like they're on the space station and they fall in love.
Listen, I want like...
They were enemies to lovers. They were put into a shuttle. Let's write it.
Okay.
Let's write it. Fine. What's your dream, like, sci-fi? What's your sci-fi world of, like, do you want to be in space or do you want it to be futuristic? Do you want it to be utopian? Like, what's your dream sci-fi?
I think I like when the tech is really cool.
Okay. But, like, we're still living on Earth, but the tech is enhanced? Or do you want to be on another planet?
I could do either.
Okay.
But it needs to not feel like Earth anymore.
Okay.
Like, society has to be completely different.
Completely changed.
Yeah.
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 Do you know what I liked so much about dystopian ones was I felt like I could thrive if we lost everything and had to start over.
Yeah.
I feel like I would be
make it
happier. I feel like I'd make it. Would I be one of the pink people in Red Rising? I don't know.
Maybe.
But I don't want like the beginning stages. I want it like where it's a little more House on the Prairie-ish. Where they're just like, you know,
so you want it once they've figured it out. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I could be really great in the Hunger Games, like District 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure, absolutely. You're not, maybe, but I would like District 13.
District 13 would be pretty dope, but I would need to see the sun. I would need to come out.
Sure. But I like the idea of like...
District 12, not for me.
No, hard pass.
No. District 1? District 2? Sure.
I wouldn't say no.
No.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's on sci-fi. Give us all your recommendations. We want to dabble more into this genre. So
remember when we said we're going to make a quick one about sci-fi and then 42 minutes later. All right. Bye. Everyone.